Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Today I'm broadcasting from Chesapeake, Virginia. Also showing up on YouTube, on Facebook, and also on, what's the other one?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Those three areas I'm broadcasting to. And my wife Gloria is in the studio with me today. She's monitoring the broadcast and helping me out on comments and so forth. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to do a landscape, and it's going to be a mountain scene with some wildflowers. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm going to introduce two new brushes. These are the these are the Siver Brush, Hake Brush. This is the small. I got them marked on my website, everettswatercolors.com, in my supply page. This is the 1.5 inch size. I call it small. Then I have a little over 2 inches, about 2.25 inches. Now I'm calling that the large. And also I'm going to be using the new Siver Brush black velvets. These are my plain airbrushes, but I'm going to use them in the studio today. I got the 1/2 inch flat, and I got the number 8 round. These are really beautiful. They're natural hair squirrel brushes, and they're also in my inventory on my website, everettswatercolors.com. Okay, I'm going to take you over to my painting page, and we're going to get got your overhead camera ready. So I'll see you over on the painting table. I'm going to turn on the overhead light here. A little nice bright view. There we go. And this is the scene that I found on the computer. It showed up one morning. I don't know where it came from, but I turned the computer on and this came up and I said, boy, that's a great scene. So I decided to go ahead and use this for my reference for a painting. So it's got the Rocky Mountains with snow on top, and it's got a nice little field of yellow flowers and a pathway taking us back into the painting. So it's got all the elements of a great design. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, let me get started. Over here, I've got my Hake brush. This is my large Hake, and I have the small Hake here ready to go. And let me see. The first thing I'm going to do, I've drawn out the sketch here on my design on a quarter sheet of watercolor paper. This is a Gemini 140-pound watercolor paper. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take clean water. I'm putting the large Hake, and I'm going to wet the sky area. So that's my first step. So look at that. It covers the whole area in about just one brush full. That's the great thing about this Hake, is it covers a lot of area in a very short period of time. So just make sure it's not too wet. I got to make sure it's evenly wet across there. So I wet the sky first, and I'm going to put the sky on. Put that aside for a minute. Now I'm going to pick up the small Hake, and I'm going to load it with a little bit of yellow ochre. Don't need very much. And I'm going to put a little color up here in the sky. And I'll rinse out the brush. I'm rinsing out the brush in my clean bucket over here. Rinsing out the brush. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue. Nice sky color. And I'll go right across the top of this. You'll notice how that Hake just covers that paper beautifully. Come right down over that mountain. leave a little white paper showing there, give a little cloud up there on the side. I got a little darker up in the top, just a little darker in the top of the sky. Okay, now I'm going to get the hair dryer, and I'm going to dry the paper just a little bit before I put the next stage on. So I'll turn on the hair dryer. Okay. Question. As long as there's no confusion, this is a Hake brush, Hake. It's pronounced Hake. Seen a lot of things. People call it Hake. I guess it rhymes with sake from Japan, but this is a Hake brush. It's made out of goat hair. It's very soft and holds a lot of water. Very porous. So what I'm going to do now, today's tip is to control your edges. The tip for today is edges. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put in some more. What I've done so far is in the background, I've used yellow ochre and ultramarine. I'm going to put a little bit of Payne's gray into the background, and then I'm going to go into the middle ground. So let's finish with I'm going to go with ultramarine and Payne's gray now into the background. So the tip here is today is I'm working on the edges here. I'm controlling the edge of the brush. You can see here I can get pretty well. I get a lot of detail with this with this Hake. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of Payne's gray. The Payne's gray is almost a black, but I want a darker value down here in this area here at the bottom of the hill, bottom of the mountain. So I'm putting a little bit of Payne's gray and let it blend in with that wet color that I've already applied. I've got my board tilted about 10 degrees. It lets the water flow down. Now I'm watching the drying here of the colors. I'm putting a little more blue in here. I'm adjusting the value of the color, adding a little more value into that mountain scene. A little dark down in the valley here, so in shadow. So I'm adding a little more Payne's gray, make it a little darker. Adding the dark black Payne's gray to the blue makes it darker. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a tissue, just a plain tissue. I'm going to lift out some of the colors here. And what I'm going to do, this is going to give me that snow cap mountain. So I'm lifting out some of the paint now, just to give me a little design here. So I'm lifting it out with a plain tissue. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone. Maybe I'll dry it just a little bit. I'll turn on the dryer. Let's see if this is still dry back here. I'm lifting a little bit of that color off behind the mountain there, just a little bit. The wet sky, and I put the water ran a little bit. That's okay, not a big deal. All right, now I'm going to mix my next color. The middle ground is going to be the next row of mountains. I'm going to use burnt sienna, ultramarine, a little bit of quinacridone gold. Burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and quinacridone gold. Gold, you probably haven't seen that before, but it's a beautiful yellow color, and the yellow mixed in with the blue will give me a nice green. So I chose ultramarine blue and quinacridone gold to give me a nice green color. So we'll start with the mixture here. A little bit of burnt sienna. I'll mix that in with a little bit of ultramarine blue. And I'm going to paint this. This is the middle ground fill mass. Again, on the edges, I want this edge to be a sharp edge. So the paint above it is dry. So now I'm painting that with wet on dry now, and that will give me a sharp edge. And I'll do this. I'm going to do the same thing over here. The wet brush from on the Hake with the dry paper will give me a sharp edge. And I want that to be a lighter value because the darker value is going to be the mountain. So I think that turned out to be really good. Now I'm going to show you that mixture now with the burnt sienna, excuse me, the ultramarine and quinacridone gold. And you can see it right away. It turns into a beautiful green color. Ultramarine blue, quinacridone gold. Look at that, beautiful. That'll give me a nice green color. As I'm coming forward now, my colors are getting warmer. So I started with a blue in the back, way off in the background. Then I came in with a little bit of brown with the burnt sienna. And now I'm coming a little bit of green. So as I come forward now in the landscape, I'm getting warmer colors. And I'm using different parts of this brush. I'm using the edge of the brush, the tip of the brush, and I'm pulling up vertical strokes, horizontal strokes. So, just using it's the same brushwork technique as in all brushes, but you can use this one. It carries a lot more. Well, you can see I've already painted this whole painting, this whole section with just one brush load. I'm bringing a little bit of that brown in there now on top of this green a little bit. Okay. Then I think I'll take some leftover color here. I just want it to be just dark down here, like a valley, using the edge of the brush. And I'll let that dry. I may come in and darken that just a little bit after it dries. We'll get going. Okay. So now I'm going to mix up. I'm using that quinacridone. I'm going to use a little bit of my foreground now, which is the flowers in the field. I'm going to use yellow lemon and ultramarine blue, and for the grass, I'm going to use Hooker's green. So those colors, those will give me a lot of variety of greens here: yellow lemon, ultramarine blue, and Hooker's green. So that's another mixture I'm going to be doing here with the Hake brush. Using the Hake, picking up a little bit of the yellow lemon. Now, the flowers are way in the background. So again, the colors are getting warmer. So I'm putting some yellow flowers, the field of flowers back here in the background. And I'm going to come forward. Come forward with that yellow. These are patches of yellow flowers in the field. So I want to capture those a little bit down here. Using the edge of the brush, a little corner of the brush, getting a little bit of texture there. Okay, now I'm going to mix up some more greens. I'm going to get a darker green. I'm going to use the Hooker's green and ultramarine blue. I never use the green by itself. I always mix it with a darker color, another color to give me a change. Change in color, change in value. So now I'm putting in the tall grasses. And I'm loading the brush up, and I'm basically going around. I'm going to fill in the grass along here, the green grass next to the yellow flowers. And I want to vary the color. I'm adding a little more blue in this mix. I have some grass over here on the left, so let me move over here a little bit and get some grass started on the left side. In this pathway, I'm going to paint with the smaller brush, but we'll get to that after I get this down. We'll get the grass in first. So I'm using the side of the brush and using the corner of the brush. Right now, I'm making brush strokes just to give me little textures. I'll leave some white paper showing too. I like the white paper. I can always go back and fill that in at the end if there's too much white showing. I always like to leave a little bit of white showing. It gives me a little bit of opportunity to make changes or additions to the colors. A little more blue in here. So this is a really rich combination of greens because it's a meadow that's overlooking this mountain, and it's got this great field of yellow flowers growing up here in the highland. And this photograph was a surprise when I turned on the computer about a week ago. This photograph showed up, and I have no idea the source, and it didn't have anything on it to describe where it came from, but it must have been an inspiration that came out from somewhere. And so the picture spoke to me. It said, paint me, paint me. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. It said, paint me, paint me. I'm going to put a little bit of dark back here in the middle ground, a little bit of dark bushes and low trees next to this little mountain down here, little hill, a little bit over here. So just by using the edge of the brush here, I'm just putting in little details. Okay. The different values give me depth in the painting. A dark in the background, I'm getting lighter as I come forward. A change of color helps also. Now I'm going to introduce. I'm going to bring in the Siver Brush 1/2 inch flat. And I'm going to put in some rocks, and I'm going to mix up a little bit of burnt sienna and little bit of ultramarine on a nice dark color. And I'm going to go in and just put in some dark colors here. These little rocks that are in the field. Because we're in a rocky area, we're in a rocky country here with those mountains, so there's a lot of rocks around. And I'll put a little one up here. And as the rocks go back, they get smaller. And again, it gives me depth, gives me dimension. The larger rocks are forward, and as you go back, they get smaller. It gives me the impression of depth, and it gives me depth on the painting. Let's see, I'll put this one. Put one here. Okay, now this is an old credit card that I cut in half, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape the top of the rocks to give me some dimension on the rock, give me some definition. And by scraping the top, is light on the top and then dark on the bottom. So I'm using a scraping technique now to define these rocks, to define the light edge. And I'm using the corner of the card, and I'm basically just dragging the card over top of the paint, letting the light color show through beneath. Okay, now what I'm going to do now, this is my palette in the bottle, dot sprayer. All this equipment I'm showing you today is all available on my website, everettswatercolors.com. But this is my palette in the bottle, and what I'm going to use is I'm going to put a little bit of dot spray, and I do a light tapping motion. I'm just barely touching the top of this. Very light tapping motion. This will give me a little bit of texture. And I have lots of videos on YouTube and on my website on how to use this dot spray bottle. I used this dot spray bottle last time in one of the videos, and it's a very so between this Hake brush so I'm taking this black velvet 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the pathway. I'm going to give me a dry brush technique here. I'm going to lay it flat and kind of just drag it through. Give me a broken stroke here, which will look like a rugged, stony pathway. Looks like a and I can pick up a little bit of burnt sienna and kind of drag in a little bit of that also. A little bit of burnt sienna mixed in with that yellow ochre. It looks like sand or dirt. Okay. Now, one of the other brushes I use is this number 8 round, and I want to go in and put in some more definition on the grass. So what I'm going to do here is on the edges here. Remember, we're talking about edges control. So around these rocks, I'm putting a little bit of shadow, and I'm using this round brush now to give me a little shadow pattern around the rocks. And I think what I'll do before I go any further, I talked about that mountain in the background. I'm going to darken it just a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of that burnt sienna. This burnt sienna mixed in with a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to add in a little more value on this one forward mount here. So I'm going to put a little, make it separate from that background a little bit. So I'll put that in there, change that color just a little bit. And I'm doing the other side also. So I fill up the brush, fill up the Hake brush, and then it loads it up very nicely. Just really, and I just brush it down on a nice flat stroke. I'm using the corner of the brush now and just dragging it straight, using the edge of the brush, bring it straight down, and then fill that slope up with a little bit darker value. A little bit darker value. Kind of breaks that up a little bit. Okay, now the last little technique I want to do here, I'm going to use this is the Holbein number 4 Rigger. So this is another brush I use. This is my number 4 Rigger. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that green, mixed in with a little bit of ultramarine. And I'm going to go in here now. Now I'm going to put in some grass strokes. Now I can use the brush. I can also go in and I can take my credit card here and I can drag in some of this paint. Yeah, the Rigger is a very thin-haired brush. It's got long hairs and it's very good for detail and giving precise marks. And here, when I take the end of the brush, I can do a nice sharp stroke here. Gives me the impression of grass. I can also build texture with it. So what I'm doing is I'm changing some of the shapes here of this green and yellow here with a little bit of texture work. And on this side over here, the dark green against the light green gives me a little bit of texture and gives me a little definition of grass. Again, this is an impressionistic painting. I didn't mean to make it real. I didn't mean to make a realistic painting. I wanted to be impressionistic. So I wanted just to look like it looks like a mountain scene. It looks like a field of flowers and a roadway or pathway going up to the mountain. I think what I'll do, let me make one little observation here. On my roadway, I want the forward portion to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to put a little value, just add a little more pigment here with using this 1/2 inch silver brush, and I want the forward area to be a little darker. And as I go back in toward the scene, it gets a little bit lighter. So that gives me again depth. It gives me depth. And I can go along here. I'll use the same brush. I can go along here now, and I can fill in some of the whites along here. I'm not gonna fill them all in, but I can go ahead. And I got one more touch I want to do. One more touch. I'm going to use the number 8 round of velvet, black velvet, and I'm going to load it with Chinese white. And what that's going to do is I'm going to add those snow tops to this mountain. Now, I could have masked this out in the beginning and left the white paper, but I like to do the brush. I think the brush strokes give me a better feel. I have more control over the brush strokes, and I can vary the edge a little bit with the brush. I can make them defined. I can make a hard edge, soft edge. I can make a lost and found. So I have a little bit more control with the brush stroke. And here I'm adding in the mountain. I'm adding in the mountaintop here with the snow. And I'll go back to the photograph when we're finished here. But this pretty well defines what I see. And this brush holds a nice load. It's a natural hair brush, squirrel and other fibers, but it's basically a natural hair brush. And it comes to a very nice point, and it carries a nice load of paint and pigment so that it covers the area very nicely. And I've got this. I'm using this in my plein air kit because it's so small and it's so portable that I take it along on my plein air. So it's becoming my plein air brush is what I'm doing. I have other brushes, but this is the one I've been looking for a good plein air brush that's portable and small, but also does a nice job. This brush does a fantastic job. I can get the detail. It comes to a very fine point, and it's got a nice belly to it. I can do all kinds of strokes with it. So, and I'm just adding a little bit of, again, this is just to add a little more interest up here in the background, because this was the whole subject matter, was the mountains, and of course the yellow flowers in the field. Those are the things I was trying to capture. I think what I'll do, I'll just now all I can do now, I'm going to take the smaller brush and I'm just going to clean up some of the edges. Remember today was edge. We're talking about edge. So just going to take this. I'm just going to go around here. I'm just going to pick up and fill in some of these white areas and kind of not fill them in, but kind of eliminate. What I'm doing is I'm reducing some of the whites. I want some of the whites because they put sparkle in your painting, but I want to reduce some of them because there are a lot of them that it becomes distracting. So remember, this is an impressionistic painting. So this if we say this is flower, you have to make it up yourself. If these are groups of flowers, then these are groups of flowers. It's whatever you're trying to define. So what I'm doing now is I'm really going around and I'm cleaning up, I'm filling in, I'm eliminating some of the whites, and essentially building a little texture, making it look like more like flower groupings. And here I'm adding a little more yellow. I'm using the Rigger brush now, filled up with a little bit of yellow, and I'm putting the lemon yellow. And I'm going to add just a few more little dots and dashes here, and kind of filling in some of the blanks. So really, right now, this is all my interpretation. I'm just looking at the painting, and I'm trying to just complete what I see here. And I think only one more change I want to make, and that's to the roadway up here. I think I want to bring this in. I used the wrong color. I want to use green here. I want to take away this little bump here in the road. I want to bring it out. And bring this rock out. So I'm going to put a little more curve into this roadway, just a little bit more, just a little curve. That's the great thing about being an artist. You can make any changes you want. It gives you a lot of power to be able to go in and move things and add things and change things. Okay, well that's a mountain scene, and let's go back and take a look at that scene. This is the photograph that I used to do the mountain with the snow in the background and these middle ground hills or mountains here. Then the grass was the grass and the yellow flowers, yellow weeds out there, and the pathway that takes you back into the scene. So that was my reference, and this was my interpretation, and I think it turned out really good. Remember, this is a demo, just demoing techniques using the new Hake Brush, which turns out fantastic. I think the sky and the colors that went in there. The control here is the amount of water in the brush, and I use a sponge, and I also use a towel. If I think I got too much water on the brush, then I carry a towel and I can pat it dry. In other words, I can control how much water is in this brush, and that's about the only thing to practice is the control of the amount of moisture and the amount of pigments in the brush. But long brush strokes, this would be great for a beginner to do a background. Great for any advanced person to go in and add in even detail. You can use the corner of the brush, the edge of the brush. So I'm going to be using this brush. This is going to be one of my go-to brushes in my brush repertoire because it does so many things along with my other brushes. So all these items I'm talking about, the brushes, the paints, are all at everettswatercolors.com and the spray bottle. So let me show you. I also did, this is one I did today. Just a quick demo. But I did one earlier. And I'd like to share that with you. Sometimes, this is one I did earlier. I'm going to bring a mat over. Let me put a mat on top. And if I put a mat around this, you can really see what's happening there. So that this one, of course, I took a little more time on it. You can see the rocks I did. The rocks came out the same way, and I went in with I did more scratching with the credit card, and I got the same colors and everything. And the sky was every time you do a sky, it's going to be different, and that's the idea of art, and especially with the large brushes and all the water flowing. When you do wet on wet, things are going to make a difference every time. But essentially, it's the same scene, okay? And sometimes my experience has been the first time you do it, it's always better than the second or third time you do it. But I wanted to show this demo because I really enjoyed this painting. I really enjoyed using the techniques, especially with the new brushes. So let's go back over to my main camera. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that painting today. I got a few comments on the kind of brush. Well, Hake, I already covered that. The Hake Brush, Hake, is the name of the brush, and it's a fantastic tool. I just want to say subscribe to my YouTube channel and give me a thumbs up. It helps with my rating, and also on Facebook, give me a like and also make some comments. I'd love to get back to you and answer any questions and so forth you have. If you have questions about the techniques I did today, or about how I painted, or any techniques I did, or colors, or whatever. And I'm going to have some videos on this using this brush down the road. You better believe that one, because it's a really nice brush, and even I can use it in plein air. So I want to thank you for visiting me today, and my wife Gloria and I want to wish you all a happy New Year and a safe New Year. And I'll see you next year on January 6th, next Thursday at 2 o'clock. I'll see you then.